Welcome to another episode of M&A Unpacked, the weekly show where we bring on experts in MSP M&A, case studies from those who have gone through or going through the process, and top M&A and business minds to help you maximize the value of your MSP, whether you're buying, selling, or just trying to improve your business. And make sure to subscribe to the Kaseya YouTube channel so that you know when new episodes drop, and you can even save the M&A Unpacked playlist for easy access. Today, I'm joined by the Director of Equity Partnerships at New Charter Technology and founder of DCG Technology Solutions, Brent Whitfield. Brent, thanks for being here today.
Hi, Mike. Glad to be here.
So DCG used to be called Dependable Computer Guys back in last century. You were a VAR going back to 1993, and then you became an MSP, and you changed your name to DCG Tech. New Charter Technology acquired you in 2020. I'd love to start off by asking you how you built up DCG, to the point where you were able to sell your business.
Yeah. Well, you've done your homework. Almost nobody knows that we used to be called Dependable Computer Guys, but yeah, we were a VAR, and we started doing white boxes and then moved to Dell and HP. And the moment that we decided to become an MSP, we were about 80% hardware, 20% services, which is really just projects. And I can remember talking to my partner about the idea that I had and that I was learning about, which was, hey, we're going to take our sales to zero pretty soon, and we're going to just focus on managed services. And it was kind of shocking, and no one was doing it when we did it. But I'm so glad we did it. We're probably one of the only MSPs I know that does zero hardware. We actually really do no hardware sales, and it was kind of an outgrowth of our VAR days, and having to have a shipping and receiving guy and an RMA guy. We're actually moving up to 2 RMA guys when we quit doing hardware, and we just realized that by the time you had all that infrastructure to help with these sales, that there wasn't a lot of margin in it, and MSP was taken off. And we really felt like every time we quoted a deal as an MSP, we jeopardized the high margin business, which was the services part, with these hardware deals that would sometimes cause us to lose the MSP work. So we divorced ourselves from hardware completely at that time, and just focused on becoming the best MSP that we could, providing MSP services in a way that no one else did, and that served us really well. And then we transitioned to our new name, DCG Technical Solutions, because we really, computers wasn't a big part of what we were doing anymore.
And when did you make a decision that, hey, maybe it's time to sell?
Yeah, so we were a successful regional player in Los Angeles. Been around a long time. We typically are top of the search rankings, and we are adding a couple clients a month, and also by marketing and also by referral. And our vision, the vision statement we actually had on the wall said that we would be a national player, and that we would eventually become a national player in the SMB space. And so the problem was when we got to that we felt like we achieved kind of dominance in our local market in Los Angeles. There was really the only way to kind of become a national player was to, one, become a platform, or two, merge with some other strategically placed MSPs across the country, or be acquired. And in the end, it was a natural progression of what we thought we would always be, and we did it eventually because kind of we wanted to de-risk. I think ransomware was just getting going, and we had some supply chain issues that we were observing with some of the big players, where the software that we were deploying on client sites, or the vendors that we were using for those for the software that we would deploy on the sites, was getting getting infected. And we just felt like there was a lot more risk than we wanted. And that's why being acquired by a PE firm made more sense to us once we got there. I think that in the end, we wanted to be a national player. We knew a PE firm could help us get there, and we wanted to de-risk and just have less risk for what we had built up over at that time about 27 years.
And what was the journey like? How much prep time goes into selling, time frame it takes, the due diligence, all of those little things that go into that process. Would love to hear about it.
Yeah, so I started, we call it, in my peer group, we call it managing for equity. So we started managing to equity 5 years before we actually sold, which means, taking all the fluff out of your P&L and organizing your chart of accounts so that revenue and the COGS correspond. And it's easy to tell the story about our managed services versus our managed cloud services versus our managed security services. And so we just started focusing on tweaking the levers that actually add to the value of your company when you're getting ready to sell. We also normalized some of the expenses and started taking regular salaries that would make it easy to tell the story to an acquirer. At that moment, during that 5-year period, really the last 2 years, I started talking to brokers and investment bankers about possibly representing us. And I picked a couple that, separately. One represented us for a while, didn't work out. We did one LOI with them, and I didn't end up going forward with it because of some diligence issues that I noticed. And then went through a couple of different representatives and eventually landed on Mitch Morgan, who is now the chairman of New Charter, chairman of the board at New Charter. And he was CEO for the first 4.5 years or so of our existence. And so he was representing me, and we were having kind of some of the same issues in terms of finding a match for DCG that I was having with the other brokers. And I said, Mitch, at some point I can remember where I was. I was on my one wheel in Hollywood on Los Feliz Boulevard, and he had brought the second deal that went to LOI, and I had to say, Mitch, you're wasting my time. This isn't any better than it was with the other broker. I'm about ready to give up on this. And it was interesting because within about 6 weeks, he came back to me and said, there's an idea that I've had for quite a while, and I'd like to take your deal and 3 others and create a new platform. And this is the way the platform would look. He says, I think it answers the problems that you've seen with some of the other platforms, and I'd like you to be a part of it. And I was like all in. And it was risky because we were starting at zero. But within 4 years, we've created a company with 26 other MSPs. Our run rate's about $300 million, and we have 1,200 employees across the nation, and running MSP operations in 36 cities. So in the end, I think I found exactly what I was looking for. I just didn't expect we'd find it in quite that way. And but in the end, I'm glad we did what we did. It's some of the shortcomings, and this is true for most of the MSPs I talk to in my new role as director of equity partnerships at New Charter. Most of us MSPs, we really care mostly what's going to happen to our employees and what's going to happen to our clients that we've spent years and years trying to nurture and service. And I think lastly, we think about ourselves, like what's going to happen to us. And when you take those 3 aspects, what's going to happen to my employees, what's going to happen to my clients, and what's going to happen to ourselves, the New Charter model is just such a good fit. All of our operating company founders have stayed on, except one, and that's pretty much unheard of. And in the space, it's just usually there's an acquisition, and then typically the founder gets disillusioned and unhappy and he leaves, and then some of his key people leave, and then the clients leave. And Fred Vacola talks about this eloquently, better than I can. But he talks about the attrition that happens after an acquisition, and there's like a 1 to 3 year kind of rebuilding period where these significant losses occur in terms of key employees and key clients. And he's actually able to measure it because he sees the seat count change on his side, and so he knows very well with how that goes. And at New Charter, we've kind of bucked that trend because of the way our model works. And our employees stay, our founders stay, and our clients stay. And what that does is it creates a growth platform that where we're growing in high double digits every year. Well, double digits, but between 16 and 22% per year growth. And it's pretty unheard of. Most of the big platforms, Fred will say, grow in single digits. And it's partly because this integration that occurs typically turns off some of the employees, sometimes the founder, and that's why you need that year to 3 years of rebuilding. But in New Charter, we think that one, we buy best-in-class companies. So we aren't buying fixer-uppers to begin with. So we don't have to go in and change a lot of things. And the founders get to continue to make hiring, firing decisions. We think that they're closest to the client, so they should continue to run that. And as a platform, we provide the things that we feel are most needed and actually help kind of pour gas on an already successful growth engine. And the way that we do that is through really fantastic HR, great benefits, great 401ks, great healthcare benefits. We also have a recruiting staff of about 6 people now that help us place employees at New Charter companies. In 2024, we expect that they'll have placed 200 employees at New Charter companies. So that takes a huge burden off the operating companies so that they can kind of focus on delivering to their clients while we're doing all the heavy lifting around HR and recruiting. The other place that we've noticed in the companies that we acquire where they need help to grow beyond kind of referrals and the things that they were doing is we provide a centralized marketing engine that involves appointment setters, pay-per-click, SEO, and HubSpot-based marketing that we do from a centralized HubSpot instance across all the operating companies. So we think we're integrating the important things that most MSPs need help with, but the part that's client-facing, the part that the client feels, they still see the same company name, branding, people, and we think that's our secret sauce, and that's what we think will create an MSP the industry hasn't yet seen.
I want to dig into a little bit about what New Charter is like as a company. You kind of go a little deeper here. How you guys buy, transition, integrate. What's the process look like?
Yeah, so we do things quite a bit different. We typically are buying companies who are not for sale, and that always strikes people as like, what? How do you buy a company who's not for sale? And ultimately, we're buying best-in-class companies that are run by founders that love what they do. And selling is typically the last thing on their mind when we find them and start talking to them. And it can take a year to 3 years. And we've noticed that it's like the longest sales cycle ever when you're talking to companies who aren't for sale and you want to acquire them. But that's what we're doing. So that's number one. We do things differently. The other thing on the integration side is that, and I touched on it a second ago, but we integrate for value, not vanity. And what's critical about integrating for value, not vanity, is that it's not really important for us to have New Charter branding splashed on everything and these things from on high coming down into the operating companies to do things a certain way. We never synergize and remove employees ever. We never take help desks and move it to a central place, either offshore or even onshore. We do provide operating companies 24/7 service desk if they want it, because a couple of our operating companies offer that, and they're at the scale where they can handle any of the overnight work that any of us want to give them. But we don't go in and say, hey, you don't need a help desk anymore because we got this one over here. If they've got a help desk that's working for their clientele, then we leave that alone. So integrating for value, not vanity, is a really critical part of what we're up to. But once we've got that MSP kind of in our system and wanting to be part of New Charter, it's about a 2-month to 3-month process where we offer an LOI. And at New Charter, that's the other thing we do quite differently. Our LOIs don't look like anybody else's in the industry. And I know I went through, I had 3. I signed 2, but I had 3 when we started New Charter. And our LOIs don't look anything like anything I ever saw. And the big reason for that is that our M&A approach we're really looking for partners, not acquisitions. And so our LOI will have a multiple that's extremely fair and market driven. But we also have a way to do a tax advantage reinvestment, which means you can take up to 1/3 of what we pay you. So just kind of take real numbers. Let's say we're going to offer you $10 million for your MSP. You can take up to 1/3 of that and reinvest it in New Charter. And we love that because even though we dilute a little bit, we end up with a partner that's as invested as we are. The other thing we're doing differently is some of the other platforms are offering shares, but they're typically B shares or profit appreciation shares. They're kind of a way of participating in the larger platform, but they fall short of what we're doing because we're offering founders shares. So my shares match the same shares that the PE company owns, and anybody that we bring into the platform has the same shares as I have. And so it's a very simple math, equation at the end. We all get the same payout based on the number of our shares. And the more we were paid for our company, the more shares we'll have in New Charter. And the cool thing about this is that, we're, like I said, building an MSP the industry hasn't yet seen. I think we're the second largest platform now in North America. And, being part of eventually will be $1 billion company. Having a share in $1 billion company gets you a better multiple than you did when you were, when we're a $5 or $10 million company. Does that make sense?
100%. Very interesting.
Yeah. And it's some of our, I think that it's hard sometimes when you're overhearing water cooler discussions with other MSPs about the different deals out there. This is really our biggest differentiator, is that all of our MSP partners have founder shares, and no one else is doing that.
Great advantage. So now the cat's out of the bag, though. All your competitors are watching, and they're all going to offer the same thing. No, I'm just kidding.
No, well, honestly, they actually have moved to giving shares. They're just not. They're still not founder shares. And in the PE playbook, it was really hard for us to find. Mitch shopped our 4 LOIs with 22 different PE companies. No one wanted to do what we wanted, which was we want partners, not acquisitions. And in order to have partners and not have them feel like they're just an acquired entity, that basically a property, we insisted that they be full partners. And we got that with Oval Partners in Palo Alto. And so no one else is doing it. And some have come forward with SARs or profit appreciation shares or B shares. No one's come through with founder shares like we have. So, maybe that'll change. But cat's been out of the bag for 4 years and they haven't done it.
Fair enough. Yeah. So now you're working for the acquiring company. As you said, you're director of equity partnerships. So you have experience now on both sides, and I'd like to explore that with you. Talk about what you do today at New Charter and what you've learned along the way being a seller and now on the buying side.
Yeah. So I think there's actually two parts about being part of New Charter. I still am responsible for an operating company in Los Angeles. I live in Dallas now, and my partners are. I still feel like I owe to my partners that this operating company in Los Angeles succeeds and contributes, and to that end, we've grown. When we were acquired, we were a $5 million company. Now we're our run rate this year is 13 million, and we did that in just under 4 years. So, I'm really quite focused on managing that team, and that's why I actually have my coach shirt on today because we did a meeting together this morning, and I'm kind of like chief coach now of DCG, and I've got a successor named John Angelotti who has worked with DCG for over 20 years. He was our VCIO, and now he's the president of DCG. And I've been in this role at New Charter for a year, and he's been president of New Charter of DCG since about January. So coach is it's kind of really a big part of what I do now. And it's true for a lot of the founders. I think people kind of forget when they talk about acquisitions, and I'm going to guess that you're doing a few of these with a few of the different platforms, but our emphasis on the next generation of leaders is major. We actually have formalized training around helping our next generation of leaders kind of learn the things that I got almost 30 years to figure out how to run an MSP. They're having to move from mostly being in maybe a technical or a financial role to actually running the company. And so there's a lot of things that they saw us doing that they haven't done. And so this coaching role is a big part of how I spend my day. And it's been that way for the last 3 years. I'm really proud of the team. When I pulled back and started working on equity partnerships full time, that was really in 2023, last year, and it was during 2023 that team moved DCG from 31 on the MSP 501 to 21 on the MSP 501, and I'm really proud of that because they did that. And I was very focused on the new role, but they did that. And so I'm really super proud of that. But at New Charter, and it's true for all the platforms, none of us are going to be around forever. And most of us are at the point in our lives where we've sold our company, and we're either going to, we're going to plan for this transition while we're standing up or horizontal, right? And I think that's something that everybody who's acquired has to think about. And at New Charter, it's a really big deal that we prepare the next generation to get there and to be able to backfill what our jobs. And I think that's the other thing that differentiates about this platform is that our founders stay, and they're expected to nurture and develop that next generation of leaders. In so many of the other platforms, one of the reasons there's all that attrition and pain for the people that are left is that owners leave, and then the top people sometimes leave because they're unhappy. And then everyone who's left kind of running the MSP has to kind of reinvent and learn it. And for us, because we have this 3 to 5 year, runway, we're actually getting to develop and nurture that next gen. And I think that's a big part of why our platform is kind of fun to be around and be in. So that's kind of the people and the teams aspect of it. As far as running the equity partnership part, it's really the biggest part of my job now is just making sure that the MSPs that are moving, becoming more operationally mature, getting to that million in EBITDA, at least 5 million top line, at least $1 million bottom line or more, is getting our story in front of them and getting in front of those leaders so that they know that this is an option, and getting them to where they can hear it from either Peter, our CEO, Mitch, our chairman, or myself, is kind of important because some of the other platforms are framing what we're doing in kind of the way that's favorable to them. And so my main job is just to get out and talk to as many MSPs as I can, and so that they can understand what's different about how we're approaching the market. And so it's probably the most satisfying job I've ever had. There's something about the trial by fire that a fellow MSP has had and felt that I think that we can relate to each other on, and helping them find this way to a way to de-risk, take care of pretty much their retirement, possibly even intergenerational wealth with the second bite it's just so much fun. And it's one of the, like I said, it's the best job I've ever had.
Well, it sounds like and looks like, just talking to you, I can tell you really enjoy this, and that's fantastic. I'm happy for you.
Thank
Tell
you.
me what kind of MSPs New Charter wants to buy, to acquire. You talked about this a little bit, but as we get to the close here, what revenue, multiple, location, deal structure, what are they looking for?
Yeah, so so Oval Partners is our PE company, and they're a great bunch of guys, and they've helped us kind of define what the structure should look like. And what we first and foremost, we want fit. We want guys that are collaborative. We find that sometimes the best fit are like guys that were in Evolve or in True Methods or in Taylor. Anybody who's been active in a peer group usually fits good with New Charter, because we're all owners and we've never had bosses, and so we really do have a peer group approach, a go-giver peer group approach to what we do. So anyone who came from that ecosystem is usually a really good fit for us, because that's how we run New Charter. We're peer-to-peer. We're not top down. We expect our founders to continue to manage their client relationships, but collaborate and hopefully improve their offerings and improve what their clients are seeing, because they're part of New Charter. So we like people that are collaborative, and I think culture is kind of the number one thing. But after that, I mentioned we don't buy fixer-uppers, so we're not interested in turnarounds. We are interested in operationally mature companies that have built their companies to be profitable. Getting close to $1 million in EBITDA or there's a clear path to get there is a company that we would want kind of on the bottom side. But we've acquired companies that are $30 to $40 million in top line, and we'll do that all day long as well. But the majority of the folks on this call are probably in that $3 to $6 million range, 800 to 1.2 million in EBITDA, and that's when we want to start talking. The great thing about the guys at Oval is that they do some of the initial calls with myself and with Peter and with Mitch, and they can help the MSP optimize their and manage to equity so that they can get the biggest payout for their businesses. There's also some intangibles that aren't just about top line, bottom line that I could go into if you'd like to hear about that. We
100%,
don't love. Yeah,
you got the floor, so go right into that.
Thank you. Yeah, we don't love really high client concentration, and most of the platforms will discount if half of your revenue comes from one client. A while back we had an MSP whose 3 top clients were all owned by the same PE firm, and so that kind of concentration will give us pause. And so any kind of concentration, if you can work your way out of that. So that your largest client occupies below 15%, but preferably 12 or 10%. That's something to start working on right now. And the way you do that is either growing. Usually, you achieve that by just growing, adding more clients. So it's not impossible to work yourself out of. But if you come with a higher concentration, just know that revenue will have a lower multiple than the rest. So it will affect and it'll be true for all the platforms. They'll typically discount there a little bit if you've got high client concentration. The other thing, and this is kind of urban legend around M&A, and is something that we discourage. And as soon as I can talk to an MSP about this, quite often the peer groups spread some urban legends around M&A that I like to dispel. And one of them is around contracts. I don't know who said it, but it just seems to it never goes away, is that, well, before, am I going to get paid more if I've got everybody on 3-year contracts? And I'd love to talk to you, but I'm moving everybody to 3-year contracts. So as soon as I've done that, I'd like to talk to you. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. We think it's too risky to go in and change things on your clients just because you want to be acquired. And honestly, we acquire companies and pay just as much in terms of a multiple for companies that are month to month as ones that have 3-year contracts. And we might be a little bit unusual that way but we prefer to see a track record of longevity with your clients than some paper that says that they're obligated to us for the next 3 years. Because we know that in the end, we're not going to be going after anybody that wants out of a contract early for whatever reason. And what we really care about is your ability to retain those clients. So even if they're month to month, but you've had them for 11 years, we're going to give that actually a higher, the quality of those earnings feel better for us than one that's been obligated to sign a 3-year contract.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're definitely an outlier there.
100%. And it's kind of our approach is that, we know that after acquisition, the platforms that are doing high integration for vanity, we call it integrating for vanity, they're going to need those 3-year contracts. And even with that, they're going to lose a bunch of those. And with New Charter, we really don't rely on the 3-year contract, because that client that has been with them 11 years will be with them another 5. And we feel like we've got the track record to prove that. So we're less than concerned about length of contracts.
Very interesting. Well,
yeah, don't go through that pain if you don't have to.
Yeah, all great advice. How can folks get in touch with you if somebody wants to talk to you? Let them know.
Yeah, so you can direct message me on LinkedIn. A lot of folks, can connect with me that way. Maybe we can put my email up. It's just bwhitfield@newchartertech.com. So we can put that up maybe afterwards. And keep in mind too that most of the, we do 100 conversations. Out of 100 conversations, we'll only make offers on 2. So a lot of our conversations are around, well, where are you at now? And, what kind of number do you need when you exit? And, how do things, how are you growing, and what's your EBITDA look like? And we answer questions about how to refocus and how to get to where you get the best valuation for your business. So a lot of our conversations are just about sharing and sharing, what it's going to take to give you your best transaction. So just people should know that a call to anybody on the New Charter acquisition team or Oval Partners isn't really going to be much of a sales pitch. It's going to be more about learning, how to take your business to the next level so you can do the very best you can at the transaction. So just feel free to use this as a resource. We're pretty much at all the shows in terms of conferences, and all the big ones and some of the small ones, and reach out. We'll go get coffee. We'll have lunch, but we should get to know each other. If this is something that you're thinking about doing in the next 3 to 5 years, we should definitely get to know each other.
Well, thank you, Brent, and I look forward to talking to you at the next conference. Hopefully I'll see you.
Absolutely.
And can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy day to share with the MSP community. That was great content. I'll make sure to put your contact information in the show notes on YouTube. So make sure you go over to the YouTube channel and just look at the description there. You'll see his contact information. And for everyone watching, thank you. Tune in every Monday on the Kaseya YouTube channel for another episode of M&A Unpacked. And if you're not yet a member of the M&A Concierge platform for MSPs, make sure to apply today. It's an amazing platform. It's 100% free for both buyers and sellers. See you next time, everyone.